I'd like to welcome everybody and call the meeting to order. In doing so, I would like to just sort of set the tone for this evening, and then we'll move on to verbal communications. First of all, my name is Brian Bernasconi. I'm on the Arts and Culture Commission, just started this year, resident of Los Gatos, of course, and so, I mean, not that you're looking for a personal introduction, but I was sort of chosen to chair this. This is the Arts and Culture Commission, and I've lived here in Los Gatos a good part of my whole life. I grew up here, and my kids go to school here and so forth. It just kind of, I don't love the idea that we're up here and there's this separation, and generally the Arts and Culture Commission is around a table, and we talk about things sort of in a more circular kind of fashion. And the one thing I really, really wanted to avoid today is a us and them type of feeling in this room. I really do believe that there is a we feeling amongst the Arts and Culture Commission, and regarding this project, I feel as though everybody up here supports the project. I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody, but I don't believe there's anybody here that opposes the memorial. It's really just a question of how we're going to get that done, the what's, and the logistics of how that's going to get done. If everybody could take a minute and check their phones, that includes us, to make sure that they're on silent, that would be great. We'd love to have this meeting go interruption or as interruption-free as possible. There are comment cards available. So Christina has those. If anybody wants to fill out a comment card, we're going to take comments at the beginning here, verbal communications. We're going to have an opportunity to make comments after each agenda item, so it's not your only opportunity at the beginning. If you have something that strikes you, you will have the opportunity to comment, but as I understand procedure, everybody in here has the opportunity to comment just once. You can't keep coming back up over and over and over again. We're going to allow 3 minutes per speaker. There's not very many of us here, so we've all, I think the sentiment is that if somebody really does need longer than 3 minutes, then there may be an allowance for that. What we're really trying to do is facilitate dialogue here, and so I'm not so stringent on rules that you just get cut off no matter what, right? I'd rather see this be productive and everybody get an opportunity. And I think that is everything that I wanted to say, so I will just start it off with communications, the first item on the agenda. If anybody would like to share. Christina, you're looking at me?
Sure. There are currently no verbal communications or written communications submitted at this time.
Great. Perfect. Any written communications at this point that we need to share?
No, there is not.
Oh, none written too. Okay. Let's get going then. The next agenda item is number 3, background information on Veterans Memorial Proposal. Staff presentation. Thank you, Christina.
All right. Good afternoon. Oh, is this on? Oh, the battery's low, Jackie. I'll just start speaking into the mic and hopefully we'll switch this out. So, good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Christina Gilmore, assistant to the town manager. We are here today as the Public Art Subcommittee as part of the Art Commission. And we are here today to discuss the Veterans Memorial Proposal. Before I get started with my presentation, I just want to review all of the materials that you have in front of you, just so that everyone knows what they have, and also the members of the public. You should have an agenda for today's session. And following the agenda as attachment 1, there's a memorandum from Greg Larson, the town manager. Attachment 2 is a set of documents that has been submitted by the Veterans Foundation. That'll be part of their presentation under agenda item 4. Attachment 3 Attachment 3 is the proposed Veterans Memorial Work Plan for this subcommittee, which we'll be talking about a little bit later in my presentation. And then Attachment 4 is some public communication that was received and distributed to the committee and posted on the website from a member of the Museums of Los Gatos. 4 should be the very last item in your packet. Yes. And on the bottom, it should say attachment 4.
Oops, I don't have the agenda or the attachments.
Okay, so Jackie will come around and distribute those to you. It should have been in the packet at your chair, so we'll follow.
And Mr. Chair and Christina, if you're looking for it, it doesn't say attachment 4 till you look at page 2, because that's where the attachment starts. So it's under the cover memo is attachment 4. Correct, Cheryl?
Thank you for that clarification. There's not enough paper for you. Okay.
And did somebody need an agenda? I can give you mine.
Oh, here.
All right. Jackie's going to distribute any additional paperwork for people.
Right. Thank you. This one. Okay, and it has the Exhibit A.
You also have a copy at your chair of the agenda, of the presentation that I'm going to go forward. It's the yellow pieces of paper. So, yes. Okay, is everyone sorted for the time being? We have 2 hours. We have plenty of time to get everybody caught up with paper. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So again, my name is Christina Gilmore, Assistant to the Town Manager. The purpose of this afternoon's meeting is to review the proposal submitted by the Veterans Memorial Foundation of Los Gatos for a Veterans Memorial to be located at the Los Gatos Civic Center. So just to give you a little bit of background on this proposal and how it came to fruition, in November of 2012, the Veterans Memorial and Support Foundation approached the town council with the request to build a memorial in the Civic Center, a Veterans Memorial in the Civic Center. And the council at that time approved the request as well as approved some funding in order for the Veterans Foundation to move forward with that proposal. And the direction from the council at that time was for the foundation to meet and to submit 2 to 4 proposals for further council review and action. In March of 2013, a stakeholder meeting was convened, and the stakeholders that were part of that stakeholder meeting were the Veterans Foundation, members of the Art Commission, the Los Gatos Museums, Music in the Park, Friends of the Library, the Police Foundation, and Fiesta de Arts. The purpose of the meeting was to brainstorm with all of the current and anticipated users of the Civic Center for ways that the upper deck in the Civic Center could be better utilized. On November 4th of this year, March, going back to March of 2014, the council put together their annual strategic goals. The strategic goals are the council's priorities for the next 2 to 3 years, and 2 of the goals were identified as helping to support the veterans and getting a Veterans Memorial built at the Civic Center. So in March of this year, the council did identify that a Veterans Memorial was a high priority for the town and committed to partnering with the foundation to develop a memorial. So that brings us to the present day, November 4th, at the beginning of this month. The Veterans Foundation brought forward 2 proposals, 2 designs with varying elements to the council for a proposal for a Veterans Memorial. The 2 proposals that were brought forward were primarily located on the upper deck of the Civic Center, which is right above us. I know many of you have already done a site visit and a walk around. So that is the proposal that is before you today and that we'll be discussing throughout this process. The council at that time decided to refer the Veterans Memorial proposal back to the Arts Commission to utilize the public art policy and selection criteria to review the proposal and to come back to the council with recommendations on how to move forward. As part of the council's direction, they did specify some specific locations within the Civic Center for this body to consider. So those locations are the corner and upper deck of the upper deck overlooking the lawn and the rose garden, the center of the upper deck, which is primarily the fountain, the platform on the upper deck, which is between the administration building and the police police building. The lower space between the police and museum, so it's between the going down the steps from the upper deck to going towards the parking lot here behind the police building. The Civic Center lawn by Pageant Way and the parking. And then other places within the Civic Center, with the exception of Pageant Grounds and Pageant Bridge. So those two locations have been ruled out by the council for potential locations for the memorial. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the council has directed that this body come back to the council with recommendations for consideration at the January 20th, 2015 meeting. So I'll just do a quick overview of the public policy procedure. So this is part of the public art policy that was initially adopted in 1992 and modified in 2009. The policy requires that the Art and Culture Commission review proposed public art installations or artwork loaned, gifted, or purchased by the town for public display. And as part of this process, a public art subcommittee can be created and review any recommendations or proposals for public art, brings back their recommendations to the full commission as a body, and the commission will provide their recommendations for art to the council for consideration. The review process can involve other commissions. So, for example, if a piece of public art is being proposed to be placed in one of the parks within the town, then it would be appropriate for the park commission to be involved in that process. And then also, any opportunity for community and other stakeholder input is encouraged. Within the policy, there's clear criteria and conditions for how to evaluate public art. So as part of this work plan for this body, we will be going through that criteria, and I believe you have received detailed information in a previous packet from the November 12th meeting. And then finally, or two last final things, any action on public art falls under the town council. So any final action for approval to proceed with a public art project or not to proceed would be within the purview of the town council to make that decision. So all recommendations from this body are purely recommendations, and the town council will have the final decision making. And then the last item within the policy is that if the council directs, a separate process can be established for evaluating public art for a new town facility or for any other town construction. So an example of that was the new public library. That was an exception to the current policy. The public art that was included in that building was evaluated under a separate body. So your proposed work plan that we proposed to this commission on November 12th, and the commission voted to approve meeting as a committee of the whole, as opposed to having a 3-person public art subcommittee. The thought process behind that, and this commission agreed to that, was that having meeting as a committee of the whole would speed along the process because there is such a very short timeline for review and recommendations back to the council. So as part of our meeting on November 12th, staff proposed a timeline for meetings. We have proposed that we have a series of 6 meetings to evaluate this project. The first meeting was held on November 12th, and that involved a process overview and a site visit. Today's meeting will include background information, which I'm presenting to you now, in addition to a formal proposal from the Veterans Foundation on their project. The December 4th meeting will be an evaluation of the proposed material. December 11th will focus purely on location. December 18th will review aesthetics and design, and then the January 8th meeting will be for this body to come back and finalize their recommendations to present to the council on January 20th. So in addition to what is on your agenda today, the staff is recommending a couple of proposed actions that we would like this commission or this body to consider and vote upon. The first thing is just formally adopting the work plan as been outlined to you. I know that we talked about it last week. I just reviewed the dates and the objectives for each of those dates. So I think a formal adoption of the work plan would be in order. The second item would be to provide staff with direction on public noticing. So some options that the staff is bringing forward to this committee on public noticing would be potentially a postcard noticing to surrounding properties who might possibly be affected by this proposal. Posting information about this body and the task before it on the town's website under What's New email distribution and also Nextdoor email distribution. And then the third item would be potentially placing paid ads in the Los Gatos Weekly. And then the last item is story polls. So the proposal that you have before you is quite big in scale, and even though we have been provided very, very detailed drawings and renderings from the foundation and the artists that they have chosen, it would probably be a good idea for this committee to consider directing staff to erect story poles on the upper deck for the proposed area so that everyone involved and any interested community members can get an idea of the size and the scale and the placement of the proposed memorial. So with that, those are the three proposed actions that we're asking this committee to consider today, and in addition to hearing the presentation from the Veterans Foundation. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I am available to answer them.
Do you think the council was considering all these locations in discrete terms or as a whole? There's a whole list of locations here, and they're all over the Civic Center. And what we are given from the veterans seems to encompass pretty much all of them.
That's correct. So the veterans proposal does include a majority of the locations that the council did approve. So I think the task that the council is asking this committee to consider is the proposal that's before you appropriate for the location on all of the elements that are proposed. And then if it's determined that there might be other locations within the Civic Center, those are the locations that they would prefer to see a Veterans Memorial. So you have the whole proposal as proposed, and then you have these other discrete locations that a memorial, that the council has voted that a memorial could be placed.
Christina, the proposal that we've already all been brought aware of, I would like to make sure that we have enough time so that we commissioners can talk amongst ourselves on where we think it's going as it stands rather than to have more information fed to us. How does that start?
Well, after we conclude this part of the presentation, the Veterans Foundation will be presenting to you their proposal. And
which is different from what we already know?
I believe their intention is to go into more detail about the elements of the proposal and to provide more background information on how they came to their decision, and then also to be available to answer any questions that the committee members have. So that would be the appropriate time to ask the foundation or members of staff as appropriate any additional questions to help you with your deliberation.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering if there could be, prior to voting on this, the work plan, if I look at December 4th, 11th, and 18th and what's planned, there might be some need to move within and through those three topics, and I wouldn't want to limit ourselves to that. It would be hard to approve, to evaluate the proposal, and then if the location were changed, so I would want to vote on this work plan with the knowledge or understanding that at least those three dates could have some flexibility for the purposes of discussion.
Yeah, just want to say that that's an excellent idea, yeah.
And Christina, maybe you can tell us, I mean, it seems to make sense that we may be able to get that one. It seems actually that we will be able to get that first agenda, or that the adoption of the proposed work plan approved today. We can get that. I don't think that's going to be an issue. We all agreed to that actually last week. Mm-hmm. But the latter two don't seem like they're realistic for approval for tonight.
Sure. So, absolutely, this is a proposal from the staff. We were trying to figure out the best way to kind of break this up into pieces because it is a large project and there are so many elements within the public art policy for consideration. So we were just trying to come up with an easy way to group them. And of course, if this committee would like to rearrange the objectives for each date or combine them, we are more than happy to accommodate the committee. So we would just need some direction on what you would like to see the objectives for those dates for this committee to get through.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I might add,
Yes,
Greg
please.
Larson, Town Manager, kind of drawing on the comments three different commissioners have made because I think they all do link. First, in terms of the discussion that Commissioner Stonecipher asked about, we really saw tonight being learning the background of the council's action and then learning the background from the Veterans Foundation that has brought the proposal forward, because not every commissioner attended the council meeting where it was presented to the council. And I know Chair Stonecipher did, but other commissioners we thought should hear from the Veterans Foundation on the why for their proposal and how they came to it. We then saw the discussion that Commissioner Stonecipher mentioned really happening on December 4th. And that's where, after hearing the background from council that Christina just gave and the background from the Veterans Foundation, then the meeting on the 4th would be pretty much solely dedicated to the commission talking through what the council directed in terms of evaluating the proposal and what your policy says for evaluating. So we really saw that as what works and doesn't work from the commission's point of view from the proposal. That could then lead up to location and aesthetic and design recommendations. And I think Commissioner Wilcox is absolutely correct. There is an interplay between those. Staff was just laying out last week and again tonight that probably location has to be at the top end of that because that drives design, but there will be an interplay. And I think to deal with what several commissioners said they would like, it may be appropriate for December 4th, 11th, and 18th for the commission to simply amend the work plan, adding an asterisk that the discussion can, the word that comes to mind is morphed, but that doesn't seem very governmentese, as the commission chooses, because there is an interplay between the issues, as you'll hear from the Veterans Foundation tonight for why they chose the location and the design they did. So maybe asterisking the 4th, 11th, and 18th, and leaving flexibility for commission discretion to adjust those topics as needed might be the appropriate step.
Yes, Tom.
Tom Spilsbury. I have a question of process of what the town council actually is asking us to do, and I think other commissioners, I've heard it in their questions and their voices. It is not, is it our, from a standpoint, does the council want us to take this proposal, adjust, minify, modify, move it around, or simply, if scrap it completely and start over? I'm not sure what the council is asking us to do. It's so broad and so general with so many different locations. Every location could be a different, the fountain structure may not fit in other places, so then we're starting all over with what they've spent weeks and months and years on to develop, and we're trashing it. Is that, where are we, what is our goal from the council to do? Are we to adjust and modify, or start over, or what does the council want us to do?
Sure.
May I
I'm
jump in for just a
confused.
moment? Tom, can I jump in? First of all, I guess maybe I totally agree that that's a valid question and that we need to answer that. But again, I think maybe we should back up because you maybe know more about this than everybody sitting here knows about it. I'm just not sure how much homework has been done here on behalf of the commission. So maybe we could allow for the presentation first and then dig into these kinds of questions.
That's fine with me, but it's a question that I need to know how we're being directed.
Sure, and I can try to give you a succinct question or answer as I possibly can with Town Manager Larson chiming in if appropriate. So you're correct. The direction given from the council is broad. They would like you to utilize the public art policy and the criteria within that policy for how any types of public art are evaluated, and to provide them with a series of recommendations. So you have a fully formed proposal before you. So my understanding of it is that the council would like you to evaluate the proposal, and they have given you the proposal has been specified for a specific location. The council has given you alternate locations that could also be part of the discussion and the consideration. So at the end of this process, this body will need to draft a series of recommendations to the council so that they consider how they might want to proceed with this project. So the recommendations could be all-encompassing for the project. It could be anything that this body decides. So that's part of the 6 meetings for you to kind of figure out, to really look at the policy and see if the components within the policy, the criteria apply to this project as a whole, and if what you have before you is something that the council should be considering for approval. I hope that's not too roundabout and that answers your question.
There's some clarity with that.
Okay.
It is a bit general. I guess what I would like to see, it looks like this particular area is the focus at this point, and if there's other areas being considered, I think as much attention needs to be put to those so we could visualize what would be put in those areas also, because it's hard to compare the different areas if you're only shown one thing.
Sure. So that will be a conversation between this body and the Veterans Foundation. What the proposal that they have encompasses the whole upper deck as of now. So they would be the ones to have that discussion for you for these other location sites that the council has deemed appropriate.
What I wanted to clarify is that we may give several recommendations. We could give 3 recommendations. There are many different
Correct.
locations, and those locations would drive different designs, so we could do that. We could consider several recommendations.
Absolutely, that's correct.
Thank
And
you.
if the committee at some point feels it's easier to go location by location and give recommendations for each location, that is an opportunity that's available to you that you can decide. So I think there's a variety of different ways. It will be a little challenging to kind of come together and figure out how you want to package your recommendations. But yes, you can have multiple recommendations, and you're not limited by that at all.
Do you think it would be practical if since we're only allowed to speak amongst ourselves in a public meeting as this is, I think every single one of us is very anxious to know what the others are thinking. Yeah. And yeah, we have this in front of us, and it seems like it might be a big waste of time to keep piling more ideas on until the community and the applicants know maybe generally where we're coming from. Now, not everybody is going to be in agreement, but we don't really know who agrees with what.
Sure. So just to go over a little bit of process, I know this is a very different process from what this commission is used to, and so we're trying to it's very formal, and we're trying to do a hybrid between a council meeting and a planning commission meeting. So as Mr. Larson mentioned before, the December 4th meeting is, we've identified that as a meeting for you to talk about the proposal as presented to you as a whole. So that would be your opportunity as a commission to share your thoughts, ask questions of staff, ask questions of foundation representatives, and really kind of put out your thoughts and your feeling about the proposal that's before you. And then, of course, that will inform the rest of the meetings and the conversations that you have. Today's meeting really is to provide you with some high-level background, and also members of the public who may not have been involved or have attended previous meetings, and to allow the foundation to come before you and present more details on the proposal. And so we do anticipate that this should be a two-way communication between this committee, the foundation, any other stakeholders, members of the public that attend. So we just have to do it within the confines of the Brown Act and ensure that we're meeting those requirements. Yeah.
And I just wanted to follow on and fully support what Christina said with a slight additional nuance, which is the public process of the town, I believe, requires that you give the Veterans Foundation every opportunity to present their proposal, because there is varying degrees of familiarity with the proposal amongst the commission, and to disclose an initial preference or direction by any individual commissioner until you've had that full discussion with the Veterans Memorial, I think undermines the public process a little bit. So I think it is more structured than some of you are expecting, but we believe it's critically important to give the Veterans Foundation every opportunity to present their proposal, for you to understand it, and for you to ask questions before you start making evaluative comments about it. So that's why we've structured it this way, and I hope that's acceptable to the commission.
Before you go on, Don, I actually agree, Greg, and I'm actually feeling a little bit of like an anxious feeling to hear the veterans' proposal. I know there's a lot of questions about procedure and how this is going to work and who's going to. I mean, we're kind of venturing off into uncharted territory here, and yet I'm feeling as though we're doing all the talking, and we haven't heard from the veterans yet. So I'd like to sort of suggest that maybe we put the questions on hold for now. I'd like to hear what the proposal is. I'd like to hear the other side have their moment to share with us what's going on. I mean, we've seen a lot of paper and we've heard a lot of things, but I'd like to hear that as well. And Dawn, go ahead. I can see you still want to.
I was going to say, let's let the process begin. Let's get started.
We're going to get the veterans set up, and while we're doing that, we did have 3 actions before you that the staff was recommending. We took it down from this overhead screen, but it's on their slide. So,
and I do need to clarify one. The work plan you tentatively approved, so we're presenting it. Staff will modify that to include the asterisk if there's consensus from the commission.
I'd be willing to move that be adopted with those modifications.
Just to clarify that the motion is to adopt the proposed work plan as it stands, and to leave the second 2 items, the public notice and the sub-items underneath that and the story polls, as items that will be decided later in the process on subsequent dates.
No, sorry.
Okay, great.
I was chunking it in more discrete entities, whereby the work plan, simply the one with the dates, that we would vote on that first, would be approved with the modifications outlined by Greg, which would mean December 4th, 11th, and 18th would allow flexibility of discussion within those 3 topics so not to violate the Brown Act.
Did that make sense to you, Mr. Larson?
Yes, it does. And plus, we can go back and capture it. So.
Yeah, great. Perfect.
And I think staff would fully support that.
Motion stands. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yes, sir.
No.
Any opposed? Yes, please.
The other 2 items regarding public noticing, that's actually within staff's jurisdiction, I don't know, authority to proceed on those issues. But the issue of story polls came up at your workshop last week, so that's why we raised it here. largely because if you did want to have story polls help inform your evaluation discussion on December 3rd, we'd have to get started on it now because we have the Thanksgiving break and they wouldn't be up in time. So I think that's really what we're trying to guide. With the Thanksgiving break, if you want us to be aggressive on some of that public noticing, such as story polls prior to your evaluation session on the 3rd, we kind of have to start tomorrow. But if that's less important, we can wait till your meeting on the 3rd to get direction then.
May I say something? I think that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, a storyboard, until we really get a little bit more information.
More story.
Yeah, more story.
Great.
Could I ask, are you talking about 5 separate story polls? No. Okay, I think
the story polls really are only, I mean, the story polls, as I understand it, from what I've seen so far, would be for the upper deck. I mean, we're not going to put story polls on the brick walls. It's to gauge height and the breadth of the work proposed on the deck above us. So I agree. I think we need more story before we start launching into story polls.
We'll just put it on a future agenda for your consideration.
Yes, I think that'd be a good idea.
We all set up, Christina? Perfect.
Could I ask Brian, are there other actions that we need to take at this point? That would be item number 2.
It was work plan, public noticing, and story polls, and I think you've acted on all of that.
Great. So I would like to just go ahead and invite whomever it is that's going to present to come forward. Thanks.
I'm Ken Hillhouse. I'm the acting presenter tonight, one of the presenters for the Veterans Memorial Foundation. Thank you, commissioners, for allowing us this 45 minutes to make the presentation. Our goal is to be able to, at the conclusion of this plan that's in effect here, the different meetings, is to be able to come to a mutual understanding and agreement on what we want to do with regards to the foundation and the memorial. Also, I'd like to say, just for clarification's sake, the presentation tonight is involving one memorial, one project which was designed for the plaza. It wasn't designed for any other place, just the plaza. So if there's a change, then we'll have to go through a redesign, just FYI. Other than that, we want to start the 45 minutes with a 9-minute video on the screen. And is that right? Oh, change. Okay. Then we'll move on to our first presenter. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Ellen Manzo, and I appreciate this opportunity. 2 years ago, we filed for incorporation for our foundation, which we think earmarks a special day, not only for our veterans, our town, but also our foundation, of course. And 2 years ago, we shared our plan with the Arts and Cultural Commission. We shared our plan with organizations within the town of Los Gatos. We shared it with the town council and with the public. You heard our story, and at that time we told you that one of our goals was to raise funds to erect and support the ongoing maintenance of a veterans memorial that promotes a better understanding of the contribution and sacrifices of our military men and women who protect our freedom daily for those of us in America. And that freedom, I might add, includes, of course, as you're well aware, freedom of expression, something clearly of importance to any artist. You also heard that we intend to ensure that the memorial is a resource for the historical understanding and recognition of all veterans, past, present, future, all arms of the military that have served, are serving, or will serve for the United States, and in recognition of their sacrifices and the sacrifices borne by their families. And to that end, the foundation chooses to maintain in perpetuity the governance and authority of the foundation, of the memorial. We established this foundation for the reason that we recognize that there was a need. Consider a couple of important facts. For the last 3,400 years of recorded history, the world has been at peace 8% of the time. And consider some staggering numbers. The War on Terror alone resulted in 6,600 or thereabouts killed in action. Excuse me, I might take a pause. Pardon. Okay. Slide 2. The World in Terror alone resulted in 6,600 killed in action. 2.5 million individuals served in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Over a third of that number has been deployed more than once. Over 400,000 service members have been deployed more than 3 times. Already, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq have produced more disability claims per veteran than any other war in American history, including Vietnam, Korea, and World War II. You see, we're not just a foundation that's bent on building a memorial. We're a foundation that has a long-term goal, which we told you about 2 years ago as well. And that long-term goal is to establish programs in support of those who serve. And let's face it, if everything was copacetic and beautiful in this world and we didn't need to do that, maybe we wouldn't need this memorial. But it's real simple. We want to support our veterans over the long haul. That requires that we educate the community. To educate the community, we plan to gather the town for celebrations over the course of the year. That requires a venue. We believe that one of the best ways to achieve our goal is to demonstrate that Los Gatos is a town that expresses gratitude, honor, respect, and thanks for the freedoms that we enjoy. And that calls for this town to send a strong message, a tribute to freedom that communicates that our community appreciates those who have responded to the call of duty. That message requires a tribute to freedom with exposure. A tribute to freedom that, simply put, is front and center. I'd like to now invite my colleague, Barbara Naden.
Thank you, Ellen. And thank you for the time, Commissioners. I really appreciate it. So I'm here to kind of set a context for our general approach. I'm not here to talk about specifics of the design, but I wanted to start with what is a memorial. And according to the dictionary, something, especially a structure, established to keep a remembrance alive. So what is the remembrance we're trying to establish here? And that is simply freedom is not free. As citizens of Los Gatos, it is our responsibility to remember the sacrifices made by our service men and women, and as well as our first responders, that preserve the long list of freedoms we enjoy today. This memorial gives Los Gatos an opportunity to properly express that gratitude. So how can we tell if the memorial is actually expressing this level of gratitude? Well, one way of looking at it is its stature. The size of the memorial indicates the importance of the event or person. It needs to be proportionate to the significance of what is being recognized. Another way to evaluate it is with the location. The location is also indicative of importance. We all know the 3 most important things to look for in purchasing a house: location, location, location. By choosing a prominent location, we are proving that Los Gatos considers it important to show appreciation for the freedom we have been given. Located in the center of Civic Plaza, it will be visible to all people who visit the library, city offices, museums, and various festivals. Another way to look at it is through the cost. Our proposal is to raise $750,000 to over $1 million in private donations to erect this memorial. As an additional benefit, it enhances our Civic Center Plaza to be a more hospitable and inviting area, especially on hot days. And finally, the last thing we looked at was permanence. And our proposal is to erect a low-maintenance, permanent structure. To commemorate our priceless freedom and the many sacrifices that have been made over the past 230 years, we have proposed a memorial that represents the enormity of this gift by its permanence, cost, stature, and location. And next, I would like to introduce Major General Kent Hillhouse, and he will discuss some of the design criteria that we looked at.
Thank you, Barbara. So we're going to go through quickly the criteria we used to come up with our design selection. And first of all, the town. What did we get from the city, from the council, the town council? One was to fix the plaza needed fixing. Needs to be inviting. It needs to be hospitable. Shade, coolness, greenery, seating, these types of things were part of our direction. Don't disrupt the trees. Don't take space on the lawn because it's used for festivals and other gatherings. Access for all ages, abilities, and disabilities. That was a critical one. A celebration of freedom that honors veterans at Civic Center and which now lacks signage and identity. Walkers use the imaginary pathway from the street to the stairs of the town chambers entrance, resulting in having to reseed the lawn once a year minimum. Maybe it's more than that, but 1 year for sure. Appropriate lighting, low maintenance, support requirements from with regards to the Department of Health, needs to be kid safe and minimizes liabilities. Muffles the sound for the mechanical room that is located just behind the Civic Center. Cannot be viewed as disruptive in light or sound by the adjoining neighbors. Free improvement to infrastructure, no cost to the town. And then at some point it was mentioned that there was a list, I don't know if it was Sunset Magazine, but the top 10 towns, the list of the top 10 towns, all have the characteristics, these have similar characteristics, one of which is a memorial, which we right now do not have. So that was given to us by the town. And second, the foundation, what were the foundation's needs? Number one, a place or a venue to celebrate those who have defended America. A place that allows people to gather and congregate. Be able to educate the community. Veterans and first responders honored and remembered and thanked. Exposure to the sacrifices made by veterans. Exposure to the needs to our current returning veterans drives helping our veterans to readjust to civilian life. Authority to govern the contents of what is included. A design that will motivate donors, emotional, weight-bearing, security. A place where one can pause and reflect. Low maintenance, minimizes ongoing cost. Green project design is a plus. A place that can be visited by individuals of all age groups, abilities, and disabilities. That was mentioned earlier too. So the resultant requirements are as follows. A design that was recognizable from a distance. High exposure location that offers a large enough space for people to congregate. No glorification of war. No heavy weaponry, no warlike poses, no glorification of death or morbid designs. And Commissioner Spilsbury, we're not going to bring that World War II tank up there. Structures that provide seating, shade, space, security, coolness, appropriate lighting. And keep in mind that we've built in a lot of flexibility so that when I mentioned lighting, I saw a document come through that we didn't release, but we are willing to go with whatever you all and the architects deem appropriate. Next one is an emotionally moving representation of freedom that will motivate donors to contribute. And we've talked to a lot of people in the neighborhood here, citizens of Los Gatos, who have their own ideas of what a memorial should look like. And if it doesn't look like a memorial and it's not in the right place, they're not going to donate money. So that's critical for us. Space to recognize individual contributions, ability for donors to customize a message. Water feature is optional, but no pooling water for safety reasons and for also health reasons. Low maintenance, construction of long-lasting materials, and energy-efficient ADA compliant, muffling the sound of the mechanical room located behind the Civic Center. Will not have features that are dangerous to viewers. And particularly, we have ideas with regards to children, skateboarders, and so forth. So this concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to George Hall, who's a local contractor here in Los Gatos. Thank you, George.
Thank you, General. I'm George Hall. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the nuts and bolts of what we propose. This is our proposal is to build this on the Civic Center here. And we're going to utilize the existing fountain. You can go ahead and start the first slide. The fountain will be the perimeter for our statue. And it's a little dark here. I'm going to come over here. Is that all right? So I can see. And we're going to support the statue with a structure that is going to be attached to the walls of the fountain. So it doesn't, we don't injure or perhaps do any damage to the membrane that's going to keep this dry down here. So the mound that the statue stands on is the rubble is going to be a fiberglass, molded fiberglass, and the statue itself will be bronze, as well the eagle that stands on his shoulder. The spire behind it with the eternal flame will be made out of a reflective material, perhaps polished aluminum, and the flame will be obviously a flickering light, electric light. We're looking at the possibility of putting in a misting arrangement that will go down around the bottom of the fountain and will be lit up with low voltage lights that will give a soft rendition of at night of fog and mist. So it'll be very touching. The arbors and trellises will be made out of composite material. They're not going to be material that's going to rot. It could be ipe or maybe concrete, but it will have the appearance of wood, and we'll have evergreen shrubbery, vines that will grow, hopefully flowering types, low maintenance also. The brick areas will be, people will be able to buy them and put memorances of people that they have shared their lives with that were perhaps veterans themselves. And that'll be one of the ways that we'll be able to make money. We have some, I think we go to the second video there. So what we have here, as you'll see, is some of the measurements of this. The fountain itself is 20 inches high. The rubble, we expect to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 inches above that. And then we have the statue of the soldier saluting is about 9 feet. The eagle that stands above him is another 3 feet higher. And then the spire comes up approximately 18 feet high. And the total width of this is somewhat less than 7 feet. And I think it's important that you keep in mind that in spite of the fact that you may say, wow, that's a huge tall figure, when you look at this area that we're looking at here, this is about 10,000 square feet, so almost 100 feet by 100 feet. It doesn't say that on here, but that's this is a much smaller figure than what it looks like here. It appears to be gargantuan. The trellises are 8 feet from the bottom and 10 feet above. so you get an idea of how this is going to appear. Why don't you try the next slide for me, will you? Thank you, Jackie. So you get a little better idea of how, the structure itself. In the middle of this is not as large as it might appear to you in these pictures, and I think that's important to note. What we have here is a pavilion that people can utilize for all kinds of events. The arts, they can have art shows here. You can have wine tasting. The museum can have all kinds of events out here. This is going to be a focal point that we are going to provide that will be an attraction. And the kids from going to school will come out here to study or talk. Kids will play, enjoy this whole area. It'll be shaded. And it will be a welcoming place for a community to congregate. Let's try the next one. So here's some of the dimensions. The 54 feet does not include the full width of the distance. That's just the brick area itself, not including the rest of the areas around it. What I'm saying, it's about 100 feet across and 106 feet the other direction. So it's a huge area. Of that huge area, we're talking about the area of the fountain is approximately 30 feet in diameter. So it takes up about a third of the space there, and the statue in the middle of that is about 7 feet across, and including this fire, 18 to 20 feet high. Next one. This is a shot taken from the street, so you get an idea of what this would look like. I truly think that it's a welcoming sight. Somebody's walking by, they're going to want to go see what that's all about. Next, please. This is a night shot where we have included 2 sidewalks going up on either side and a sign. These are just ideas that we'd like you to consider. The lighting will be very subdued. Okay, we don't want anything garish. We want this to be inviting, warm, and reverent. Next. Your attachment number 4, I believe, was by our friend Barney Davich with the museum, and he took some liberties here, or at least it wasn't very clear on his dimensions. They're very much out of scope. It's as you can see where he had it about half as high as the mountain behind it. It's much more subdued. It's about as high or not as high as the building next to it. So I suggest that when you look at that attachment number 4, you keep that in mind. Those are not in scale whatsoever, and truly, I think should be discarded, in my opinion. Barney mentioned during the session that we had when we presented it that he thought that a memorial would be fine, but he didn't want it in his neighborhood, not here. I think he's dead wrong. Has anybody here seen the memorial in Savannah, Georgia, at all? Have you seen it? It's outstanding. It's a huge earth, a big orb, and it's cut in half. You can walk through, and it has, displays of heroism and whatnot. But the kids come up and they go, wow, and they run up, and there's statues, and there's all these things that people come around. Now, this is right in the arcade. There's restaurants and shops and all this stuff. And so all along this promenade, there are benches. Now, when I was there for a few days, and I liked that. I went over and and I noticed that people congregated around this. It was an attraction. It was a magnet. And that's what this is going to be. This is going to bring people up there. They're going to bring people to Barney's Museum and to the library. And people will know where the police department is, you know? I mean, this is going to be something that people are going to be excited about. And I think you will be too. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Gil Decker.
I'm going to do a very quick summary, some of it you've heard already, that ties our design to the objectives. I got to admit, I'm biased. I spent 7 years as an Army helicopter pilot and 23 years in the Army Reserve. But Los Gatos is the best place I've ever lived. You guys know my wife. She's very active in civic affairs, and one of the strengths of the town is having the commissions like you are to keep us straight, and appreciate your time. One thing I'd like to point out that I believe he commented on is if you look at the current fountain up there, and outside of each of the fountain are 4 concrete benches, and if you measure the distance from the outer concrete bench all the way across the fountain to the next one, it's over 68 feet. Our lateral dimensions are closer to 54 feet. So we actually are freeing up some space and not gobbling space. The eagle, as I think you would all agree, is the representative of this entire nation and the freedom we enjoy. And we felt like when the artist came in and went through the objectives we had and everything, that the eagle was very critical. He's described the arbors. They fit within the envelope of that reduced space, which actually would free up space outside of the memorial on the plaza for other things, such as I know the new museum is moving in, and they'll be wanting to stage things there, and there will be room to do that. And we've been very careful of making sure we didn't gobble everything up in the space there. There was a comment made about an optional water feature, a mister. That'll have to be looked at very carefully in terms of maintenance. It may not even be necessary, but it is one of the features now. The statuary, in our opinion, generates an emotion of gratitude, and it recognizes as a tribute to those who protect our freedoms that came from Los Gatos. The materials were very critical. Our people looked at that pretty hard, and we're making sure that the materials that create may look like wood and everything, but they will really be low maintenance and will not decay with time. And an interesting thing to me, recently Christina Gilmore sent us a document that goes back to the early 60s when this center was built. And they had a set of architectural judges to assess the design. And they evaluated that very well, and it's actually a pretty neat facility when you think about it. I believe that if those judges were here today and looked at our design, they would say it fits. And it was very useful for me to see that, and it helped calm me down a little bit to say, yeah, we fit, we integrate. We integrate so that what we will do is not just be a Veterans Memorial, it is that, but it will be an attraction to the Civic Center for people to see. He mentioned the walkway. The walkway is not a walkway to our memorial. It's a walkway to the Civic Center, which will attract people and help identify this area as a destination that people want to see. So I truly believe, as I say, I'm biased, that a Veterans Memorial will be a true asset to the town, and it will attract people to see the Civic Center. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dave Knapp, 68 Mariposa. I think this is going to work. Good afternoon. I'd like to address the Commission's criterion number 6G, which is the impact on the community. The primary function of government is to build community. One of the remarkable effects of the Cupertino Veterans Memorial is that it has engaged hundreds, literally hundreds of people who have not formally been actively involved in the life of the community. Civic engagement typically revolves around special interests, things like land use. What's my neighbor planning to do with his property? Environmental issues or business issues. Is this the right kind of business to have in our community? However, for most people, they're just busy making a living, maintaining a household and raising their kids. They aren't overly excited about plastic bags and gun stores. These are important issues, but for most, they take a back seat to how the job is going and how the kids are doing in school. The Veterans Memorial, however, struck a basic chord with a majority of residents, both the long-term residents of the community and those who were newcomers. It stirred deep feelings of pride, patriotism, and gratitude, which have been somewhat obscured by multiculturalism and political correctness. These latter two are important values, but many felt the balance had been lost. A huge number of people came forward expressing the notion, finally, the town is recognizing my values and my priorities. There was early concern that by the Memorial Foundation that it would not be able to raise enough money to construct or maintain this wonderful facility. On November 11th, attended by several hundred people, it was announced that not only is there enough money for construction and maintenance, but there's enough money to support veterans who are attending De Anza College. As a direct result of the memorial, a large number and wide variety of people have been brought into and engaged in the community life. Let me take just a minute to address the elephant in the room. Won't the prominent placement or even the existence of a Veterans Memorial glorify war and encourage violence? As a veteran, let me tell you that those people who put their lives on the line and their families are the very people who most favor peace. First and foremost, the memorial serves to honor the families of those who gave their lives. For the dead, their suffering is over, but for their families, the pain goes on and on. Living with the loss of a husband or wife, son or daughter, mother or father is a lifelong struggle. Second, those currently serving and their families deserve our appreciation and support. Their sacrifices deserve recognition. And finally, those who have served also deserve recognition. Charles Province wrote, "It is the soldier, not the minister, who has given us freedom of religion. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to protest. It is the soldier, not the lawyer, who has given us the right to a fair trial. And it is the soldier, not the politician, that gives us the right to vote. And it is the soldier who salutes the flag, whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag." I'll turn it over now to General Hillhouse.
really well. The front lawn, I am not too sure about.
As I look at this, I'm thinking probably the focus for me would be the deck up above us. And that to me is the most, it's a classic opportunity for you to create an educational as well as a very meditative kind of environment. And I think it's that combination that will work very nicely.
As much as I hate the thought of losing that wonderful dry fountain that dominates the deck, it does seem like a natural place. And I don't think I've done this entire year as mayor, but I'm going to take mayoral prerogative at this point. And I'm going to move that we authorize the foundation to develop and submit for council review and approval 2 to 4 proposals for the location and design of the Veterans Memorial at the Los Gatos Civic Center, incorporating the pageant grounds, Civic Center deck, and or the front lawn and the flagpoles. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and we look forward to seeing what you bring back in the very near future.
Thank you. Thank you.
We took the encouragement and guidance offered by town council members and stakeholders and targeted the town plaza for the focal point of our design.
We considered the criteria offered to us from the town council, the stakeholders, and potential donors in choosing the top design choice. After considerable deliberation and numerous renderings, the committee has selected what it feels best represents an ideal tribute to freedom: the Guardians of Liberty.
Artist Frank Koshin Morris proposes keeping the existing perimeter of the fountain in place and installing 4 arbors with planters and seating to provide greenery, coolness, and shade. The arbors are to be located where the existing seats currently reside on the plaza. The existing fountain perimeter will be faced with granite. A platform will be installed in the center of the existing fountain to serve as a base for the statuary. The arbors will be constructed using a low-maintenance, long-lasting material with an optional consideration for the installation of thermostatically controlled misters to help cool down those extra hot days. The focal point is a 9-foot bronze symbolic figure that represents all veterans who have served and sacrificed on behalf of the call to freedom. The Guardians of Liberty includes a 4.5-foot bald eagle, an iconic American symbol of great strength, majestic appearance, and freedom for all.
Today, the eternal flame sits in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier in Washington, D.C., where it serves as a symbol of honor and respect. Guardians of Liberty brings this great symbol to Los Gatos. An eternal flame spire provides the backdrop for the statuary. It is made of a brushed silver and reflective surface that is artificially lit. The veteran and the eagle are situated on a rubble pedestal. A low, optional mist fountain serves to provide additional cooling and aesthetic appeal.
It should be noted that the design is conceptual in nature and all aspects such as dimensions and other elements can be altered to meet the desired needs.
The artist intended the theme of Guardians of Liberty to be representative of a service member who renders one last salute to the site of deployment before departing for home. He has completed his purpose, his mission accomplished.
Additional elements of the design include a path containing dedicated bricks and pavers from Main Street to the Civic Center, signage that denotes the location of the Civic Center, ground and tree lighting for nighttime enhancement, and walls of recognition composed of etched granite slabs or bronze bas-reliefs with images depicting events important in Los Gatos' military history. These walls include a wall of recognition for veterans upon the town's executive office brick wall to the left of the plaza landing, a wall of recognition for donors at the police headquarters wall to the right of the plaza landing, a wall of recognition for first responders located at the police headquarters building pageant way entrance, and a wall of recognition for historical events in Los Gatos' military history located at the History and Cultural Center's pageant way entrance.
Los Gatos can rest assured that the memorial will be created with the professionalism it so deserves. The artist team consists of Frank Koshin Morris, responsible for the creativity, and professional estimator William Morris. Frank Morris is an artist whose art has been the recipient of first-place awards in many national contests. Morris is a nationally recognized artist of multiple mediums, in addition to having the notoriety of being a master designer for the U.S. Mint.
We've provided a list of his credentials in our report to the Town Council. The committee viewed the Guardians of Liberty as the top design for the following reasons. 1. The eagle and figurative statuary made the memorial recognizable as a tribute to freedom from a distance, not just to those viewing it from close at hand. 2. A tribute to those who have sacrificed for our country. The committee wanted a symbol that stirs strong gratitude in the hearts of viewers. And 3. It sends a message that Los Gatos is a place that honors freedom and those who have sacrificed for that freedom.
The committee also felt the design delivered a message of honor and respect to our veterans and first responders, while also improving the Civic Center space in a way that delivers the attributes desired by the town stakeholders as articulated on March 1, 2013.
The 4 walls of recognition are a salute to those who have contributed to this endeavor. And of great importance, the committee felt the design would inspire donors in the community to come forward. In short, this tribute uses a community space to celebrate a right of importance to all Americans, that of freedom. It provides a venue for celebrating patriotic holidays, and it enhances the Civic Center's appeal as a destination for visitors to frequent the downtown area.
Los Gatos is a sophisticated community with a small-town feel. The Guardians of Liberty includes the bald eagle, an iconic American symbol of great strength, majestic appearance, and freedom. This symbol, by association, brands the town's character with a patriotic theme of honor, respect, and gratitude for Americans' veterans.
2 years ago, the Town Council of Los Gatos requested that the team engage quickly. We filed and were granted our nonprofit request expeditiously. Soon thereafter, we lost no time in meeting with artists, and we met with stakeholders of the town within weeks of your go-ahead.
Over a 2-year period, we spent thousands of volunteer hours to bring you our proposal today. With your prompt approval, our team is prepared to begin immediate implementation of our donation campaign. The town's endorsement of this proposal will be the first step towards fulfilling the community's commitment to honor, respect, and send a message of gratitude to those who have so selflessly served and sacrificed to protect America's freedom.
We haven't talked too much about the artist, but it was just mentioned, and if possible, we'd like to have him come out here from his home in Tennessee and address any concerns or questions that you all might have. So that's in process. We're working that issue, and we'll have to coordinate with you, Brian, and the members of the commission. Secondly, David Knapp, the last presenter, who talked about Cupertino, is a former city manager of Cupertino and also city manager of Los Gatos. And he was in Cupertino when they were building their memorial, so he has firsthand experience on that. A lot of information on the artist in the packet you have. And at this point, we're going to turn the mic back over to Brian, to Commissioner Bernasconi. Get that right. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to us today.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for putting that together. And I'm really very pleased that we were able to see that and hear everybody speak. So thank you very much. I think we're going to move on, as promised, to people. There's 2 people who have filled out comment cards. I think this would be the time to move on to them. If we may hear from Leonard Pacheco.
Good afternoon or good evening, whatever you'd like it to be. Leonard Pacheco, Los Gatos resident. I am a veteran with over 30 years of service, both active and reserve duty. So I know where we're coming from. When I first saw the proposal, I was astounded. This doesn't represent me or my branch of service, the Navy. It's more or less a Civil War style statue that's a man with an eagle. It's very masculine. Where are the women that we served with? They're not even represented. It's a collection of a little bit of contemporary twisted stainless steel with a light on the top. It's bizarre, in my opinion. It's actually two projects. It's the statue, World War I, more appropriate, and the landscape, the arbor. I don't know if you all realize that this building, this complex, won a design award when it was built. To me, this is at odds with that design of the 60s or 70s when it was built. I would hope that you would look at this as what it is, a proposal and not the final thing. Something that is a little more contemporary in feeling, something that represents those of us who are veterans, who aren't interested in a bald eagle flying over the sky. We have ducks in Vizona, not bald eagles. And we are a local town. We're not a national town. So we're here to pay respect to those of us who served because we're local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. And I think it's Barney and David, thanks.
Hi, I'm Barney Davidge, and I'm on the board of the museum, but also I do architectural illustrations as a profession for 36 years. And I believe in transparency and that everybody should see what is being built. And we took the I was gone when I heard they said the thing wasn't accurate. We just took the information that was on the website and constructed that in SketchUp. And Ellen emailed me and wanted to know if I would send it to the sculpture. Well, he's not the sculptor, though. He's just designed it. The sculptor's a separate person, right? What? I know, but the sculptor is a separate person. In his direction, right. At his direction. And in my image that you have, I didn't do the sculpture. I just took the image they had and masked it out a little bit. But everything else was what we got off the website. And so I sent it to them, and hopefully they'll correct if I made any mistakes. And from the SketchUp, you can walk around this image anywhere you want and stand anywhere you want and see what it looks like. Number one. Number two, as Leonard Pacheco had mentioned, a few other people, in 1967, the AIA gave it an honor award for this building. And when the new library was built, they reflected on this structure for mid-century architecture. And the same with the neighborhood center, it was mid-century architecture, what was influenced it. And I just want you to take that in consideration when you consider the design of the Veterans Memorial, that this is a mid-century architecture gym considered by the AIA. Other people in the community call it different things. But by the architectural community, it's a gym. And I just want you to take that in consideration when you're thinking about having a memorial in Los Gatos. And that's just from a personal standpoint. From the museum standpoint, I think we just want to make sure that all this is taken into consideration before we move forward on committing to this memorial in the Civic Center, in the fountain area. As a museum, we really think it'd be great to have a Veterans Memorial. We just might differ on design and place. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm going to go back then and see if anybody here on the commission has anything to say or questions to ask. We've got, listen, it's 5:25, so we're here for another 35 minutes as far as I know, and I think this is now where we get into the sort of nuts and bolts about what everybody's thinking, feeling, and
Mr.
right?
Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think in particular why the foundation's here, it's a good time to ask any questions commissioners may have of the proposal rather than jumping right into the discussion of evaluation and preference.
Okay. Those two seem the same to me, but that's fine. I understand the difference. George?
I don't know who from the foundation wants to speak to this, but several times and from several different speakers, the comment was made that the importance of fundraising. And it's as if the fundraising was almost primary in your process. Is getting, obviously, this is a costly venture, and you do have to raise some money. But the museum has to raise some money too. The library has to raise some money too, and schools have to raise money. I mean, there's lots of entities here in town that have to raise money. And why, how do we negotiate? How do you feel we're to negotiate through these various interests and allow veterans some way to raise money as opposed to maybe somebody else? Or is there a thought on that?
I guess one of the comments I would offer is that from a fundraising standpoint, we anticipate that there are a lot of interests, and to some degree, some of the community will overlap, no question. And that's not unusual in most communities where there are multiple interests fundraising at the same time. We also still think, though, however, that there's a large separate community that would have an interest in a Veterans Memorial. And therefore, frankly, from my vantage point, I know this concept has to go through a public process. But for me, it's real simple. The public process is the fundraising. If the money doesn't get raised, guess what? It's very difficult to install a memorial. For this is an improvement in the infrastructure for the town. This is also delivering a Veterans Memorial, but it's at the cost of not the town, but of private funders. And so that's a pretty good public test, in my view. I hope that answers the question.
Mr. Chair, Christina Gilmore, if I may, just some more points of clarification, and I'll ask the foundation to step in to make sure that I have the facts right. But my understanding in talking to other staff and members of the foundation is that the fundraising portion for this project is currently on hold because the foundation feels it would be important to have a finalized project by the council to present to members of the public or donors so that they understand the components of the project that they would be donating to. So I think part of your question...
well, no, that's understood. I think that's understood. What my question was about was this civic center, a large part or some part of the civic center space was to be used to place bricks or some memorial items used for fundraising. And why should you guys have the right to do that and maybe not the museum have the right, or the library or any other entity in town?
Well, I think part of the reason we're here is for the simplistic reason that 2 years ago, the town council authorized us to go accept renderings from artists in consideration of 3 spaces, the lawn and or the plaza and or pageant grounds. And in doing so, they reserved the right to the foundation to accept renderings before they would consider doing anything else. And so therefore, that's a decision of the town council in terms of the location and space, just as it's a decision of the town on where the museums would be located, where the library would be located, and any other infrastructure decision for the town. I do want to address something, though, that Christina mentioned. With the approval to for the town to go forward with a Veterans Memorial, which came forth as a result of the town council meeting on November 4th. In essence, our game plan, as was expressed by Secretary Francis Harvey at that time, is that gives us the ability to at least go forward and look for pledges. with the actual design of the memorial subject to final town council approval or consideration of the Arts Commission with all the different caveats in mind. So that opens the door for us to go solicit for pledges. We do feel unequivocally that we have a better opportunity to secure donations with being able to show somebody what the ultimate product is. I mean, I'm sure you know that from art or the commission and the work you do professionally. So to the end that we have the ability to display a design, we're all advantaged. We're advantaged, the town is advantaged, everyone's advantaged. And that in part is why we're so anxious to move forward and conclude the process as quickly as possible.
That's fine. We're all buddies here. To your point on the library and the museum, for example, my wife and I have a leaf on the wall at the library because we felt it was something that we used the library a lot, and it's something that's important, so we donated money to the library. We have no problem with the museum putting bricks out or anybody else. That's not the intent. But it does create an opportunity for people. For example, we found out that Los Gatos had a battalion of soldiers committed to the North in the Civil War. A lot of people don't realize that. So we go way back. Our community goes way back in terms of the military. Again, we want to be able to, through donations, through maybe it could be a chair or not a chair, but a bench, or it could be a brick. These are minor in terms of making money, but it's something that people feel is important to have a grandfather's name or a mother's name or somebody's name on a brick. So I'm not sure if I'm drilling down on your question, but that's okay. Thank you.
I do. I'm not sure. Tell me if I'm off on where I'm going right now, but I wanted to speak a little bit on addressing our Los Gatos resident who spoke and regarding, first of all, I want to say I think everybody's in agreement that we should have a memorial. I think we're past that. But I did want to hear a little bit about being contemporary with Los Gatos. And I believe our Los Gatos Road, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. You may want to say it again. Okay. Thank you. Women in war. We're southern Silicon Valley. We have companies like Cisco, I believe, that had technology that navigated missiles. There's like all kinds of things that encompass our area and would be directly related. And I'm wondering if any thought went into that in the memorial. So I wonder if somebody would address that, the woman issue, the architectural issue. I don't know that you have addressed that. And if this memorial is fighting the architectural design of our civic center, and what might tie us. I believe you did say it was designed specifically for Los Gatos. So if somebody could address that, it would be interesting, informative.
It was designed specifically for the plaza of Los Gatos. Mm-hmm. Yes, we did talk about females, and women in the service right now represent, it's about a 20% number, and I believe it's probably going to grow to as high as 40%. So they play an important role. They have been since the late 1970s. Being a part of the actual service. They were in other capacities, even in World War II, World War I, nurses, pilots, and so forth, but now they actually are part of the military. One approach we had was, in fact, our second, this was not submitted, but our second choice No changes to anything you've seen, except for the fact that instead of one individual, it would be 5 individuals, of which 2 would be female. 2 would be women in the service. And right now, the Air Force and the Navy have more women than any of the other services for obvious reasons. And a lot of those are technical jobs. The Army, in terms of combat, helicopter pilots are a lot of female helicopter pilots. I tried to talk my daughters into looking into the helicopter program and had one of our female pilots, a West Point graduate, take them under, but it didn't work. They one become school teachers instead. But at any rate, we do have a way to go about it. We could even do the one soldier with an eagle and have a female soldier or sailor next to him. So there are options in that regard, and that's a good point, and we don't have a problem with that. Does that answer the question?
It's information that for us all to consider.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good question. Just one clarification, if I didn't make this. All the other elements would be the same as the proposal that we put forward.
You know, we're really big on dogs here too, and I believe there's dogs in
Good point. See if we can add a couple of, yeah.
About cats.
War horses, yeah.
War cats. Yeah, we'll get some more cats in there too, maybe. Elephant in the room.
So I have a question of clarification. It seems in watching your presentation and listening here and listening to everything that I've seen, you were directed in 2012 by the town council, Mayor Rice, and the council members at that point to design something either on the roof of this structure here or on the lawn at the flagpoles. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm not sure, so I want clarification. How did you drill down to up here instead of at the flagpoles? And why didn't they look at other places then? Because it seems like our direction from the council this time is like taking whatever the council said 2 years ago and throwing it out the window and starting all over again. And I'm a little confused because it was fairly clear to me that the council gave them direct instructions of what to do, and as soldiers, they followed that. But I don't know.
If I may answer, Mr. Chair, as Christina reflected, and it's in the report to council, the council motion was authorization for the Veterans Foundation to return to council with 2 to 4 options of location and design, I think was the word. So, and at that point in time, you may recall the mayor's motion said to return quickly, and I think there had even been thought it would be by Memorial Day or the following Veterans Day. There would be a quick return with options presented to the council. Staff certainly, and I believe the council, thought those would be location options as well as design options. The Veterans Foundation, as is their right, chose to focus on one location and to pursue different design options. But I believe the council and staff's expectation is that there would be location and design options brought back, which I think was reflected by the council's action 2 weeks ago, giving the commission authority to look at location options.
When was the Brown Act put into effect?
Oh, boy. And the attorney had to leave. I would guess it was 19...
Well, I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but we had individual discussions with different council people. So we walked away from the meeting with, the flagpoles, Pageant Park, the plaza. But in discussion individually with different people in the council, they didn't want people in the grass, which eliminates the flagpole, because there's things that go on, music in the park, different things, which are important to Los Gatos, and we agree with that. And then Pageant Grounds or Pageant Park is a sacred area to a lot of people, one council person in particular. And we got the distinct impression that the plaza was the place to be. For that reason, to answer your question. So true, we were supposed to come back with 2, 3 locations, and they gave us 3 locations to look at. But it became very clear that there was really only one location. So we did have, when we did the call to artist, we had several I mean, over 20 local submittals. We have people showing up, but we drilled it down to 4 and then ultimately down to what you're seeing today.
One quick, just to finish my question is, what was your cost of design?
Somewhere between $750 and $1 million for the total project.
What have you spent so far for design?
I'm going to say $4,000. $4,000.
And what would the cost of redesign be?
Well,
we don't know, right? Because we don't know.
The artists do this basically on a pro bono basis so they can get the business. It's like in any business. So again, we'd have to go out and see if we can restart the machinery and see if we can get people interested in.
Just to get clarification here, were there more than one proposal at one time? Were there other proposals submitted?
Mm-hmm. It's one of 4 was submitted. There was 4 submitted.
Yeah. Right, there were 4. Is that
they brought it back 4, and they took 2 to the council.
Right. Okay.
Is one of the 2 the image that we just saw?
Was that one of the 4?
That's one of the 4.
Is this one of the designs that was submitted?
Correct.
So I'm a little confused in the point that if we're supposed to try to make a well-rounded decision, that we're not given all of the materials to look at. In other words, it showed to me when you were having the slide presentation about that the council kind of pushed or was glorifying the middle area, saying, "Oh, we'd like to see something done with that," as opposed to, "I'd like to see different designs for different spots," because it showed that there was only one proposal for one thing.
But I think this is what happened is we wound up having to back the whole
Right.
process up, right? And that's why we're all here now.
Right, but I mean, I guess I wouldn't be able to make a decision based on just one thing, nor would I think that your fundraisers would be able to do that, because you're going out and giving them one idea for fundraising, and then if this isn't what comes to fruition, and I guess that's not our problem, but I'd like to see more of what you had before.
Yeah, we haven't gone out to get to fundraise or actually to show people what the final program's going to look like. So, so when we do go out, we want to go out with just one. We're not going to be giving choices to people.
Okay.
Ken, this is this rendering that we're looking at. Oh, excuse me. This sketch, this concept that we're looking at right here. This is proposed, I'm assuming, in the same location. This is an either-or thing, right? But this is one of the ones that you've refused in favor of Frank Morris's.
This is part of Frank Morris's. This would be.
This is one of his proposals?
Nothing would be different, except instead of having the one eagle, you would have a ring of 5.
But there's no flame in this one either.
There would be a spire and a flame.
So what we're seeing is not.
Nothing changes. Nothing else changes.
Okay. Yeah. Personally, I prefer this without the spire.
I do too.
This is not, to me, this follows the 5-sided diagram that we saw in one of the sketches, but never these figures. And I assume it also represents, besides one female, the 5 branches of the military service. So it's a pretty democratic sculpture for a memorial. I personally think this is quite attractive. This would be done in bronze.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's 2 women, correct? This is 2 women.
Correct. It's the 5 branches.
Indian Air Force.
But no dog.
Probably. That's what would be our thought.
Colleen?
A couple of questions of staff, actually. I thought someone said that there was some funds allocated to the foundation to move forward with this, and I was just curious, did I misunderstand, and if so, and then my second question has to do with the foundation mentioned that this would be the property of the foundation and maintained by the foundation. And just from our previous discussions on art, thank you, our previous discussions on art, it would all belong to the city and maintained by the city, since they would have, am I correct with those 2 assumptions?
So I'll let Greg Larson speak to the money that was committed by the town first. We'll address that topic first.
Okay, thank you.
The foundation, both in November 2012 and again just a month ago, asked for, I think, $20,000 each time in support. The council has not approved that funding either time. There was a question at the last council meeting that we could bring back action on January 20th. It's not the purview of the commission. It would be a separate staff report if the council wanted to make a grant to the foundation to refer that action to the mid-year budget review. The one issue the staff did say, the foundation also included a request for a waiver of all building fees. We've never done that in modern times. Even the library paid building fees. Just so we recommended against that, but the council could always make a grant if they chose to. They would have to just choose not fund something else.
And the question on ownership and responsibility for maintenance.
I believe that's actually covered in the policy, and the way the foundation is structured, it is what's reflected in the policy, and that the art is to be perpetually owned by someone else, but it's under a grant with the town. The 3 other art sculptures that exist on the campus are in that same arrangement.
I would like to, if I may, address that.
Sure.
Is that
please.
possible?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
In 2012, and again, currently today, we mentioned that it would be the intention of the foundation to maintain governance and authority for the memorial in perpetuity. And there's a strong reason for that. When we started this endeavor, we spent some time with Sandra James, who is the former mayor for Cupertino, as well as we met with the chair for the memorial in Campbell. By the way, there's also a memorial in Saratoga. There's a memorial in Santa Clara. And we picked their brain to find out what they found over the course of time. And one of the learnings of Sandra James was that she had intended to gift the memorial to the town of Cupertino. They discovered, however, or at least it was my understanding, but we have to go clarify this, that they discovered that it would be better for Cupertino and better for the Cupertino Veterans Memorial Association if the ownership, or the authority, I should say, retained with the private entity. And the reason for that is by doing so, they would not back Cupertino into a wall of having to accept every message that every donor might want to put on the memorial, versus by being managed and owned by a private entity, the Cupertino Veterans Foundation has the ability to take a look at a message that a donor might want to pursue, having either engraved on a brick or on a slab of granite, and they have the right of refusal or the right of negotiating with that party about putting something that might be more honorable and respectful and expressing gratitude on that brick or granite, or then ultimately refusing. And that test actually presented itself in Cupertino once. Sandra received a certified envelope one day, thought that was interesting. And there was an organization that wanted to have something that was not respectful implemented at her memorial. And so she invited the individual donor in, and 6 individuals showed up, and they had a good conversation. Turns out that that particular association had a very respectful logo. That was an emblem of peace, and they were able to agree that that's what would be appearing on her memorial, or their memorial, I should say. So this area, I think, has to be raised. I know that the current policy, the Arts Commission policy, refers to pieces, the scope refers to 3 areas. One is art that is under $5,000 that is gifted or loaned. Well, this isn't under $5,000. 2 is art that is commissioned by the town of Los Gatos, and this is something that would be commissioned by the foundation. And 3 is art that is to be loaned or gifted over $5,000, and once again, by virtue of the intention of the foundation to hold the memorial in the authority for governance in perpetuity, we're questioning whether that applies. But that said, we recognize that there's importance in going forward with the public process, and that's why we're pursuing this. Thank you.
And if I can clarify, I actually thought there was alignment between the policy and what the foundation has proposed, in that the foundation would own the art in perpetuity and would be loaning it to the town in perpetuity. But it would be following the Cupertino model, is what I think our policy calls for, which is what the foundation has proposed. So I don't think there's a disconnect there. If there is, let me know. I think they're in alignment.
I'm wondering if you could give us a brief description of the memorial that you have in Saratoga, in Cupertino, and in Campbell. Are they all figures? Or I'm not familiar with them.
We can provide pictures to the commission at a future meeting if that would be helpful.
We can show pictures too if you want to see them right now. There's a 3-minute video which we can
That
kick
would
up
be
there.
fantastic.
Does that include San Jose too?
No.
Well, but the ones we're talking about are smaller communities. Saratoga, Campbell, more comparable. Lovely, if we could see those two. Sure.
We'd like to see them. If you have them, that'd be great.
We want to be sure to be aware of what's going on in Campbell.
So they're gonna flash by quickly. So just don't take your eyes off the screen.
We can also provide them separately for your next meeting if you wish. Okay.
If you just Google the memorials.
I do have to remind commissioners, any information to be considered in your decision-making has to be part of the public record.
I have Googled the Cupertino Memorial, and I was passing around a photograph of the Cupertino Memorial.
Thank you.
Sure enough.
What is your wiki? What is your wiki?
What's interesting, and the reason we had the picture in our packet, they have a slanted wall on that picture of the young seals that were depicted on the wall, and they did that to keep the skateboarders from getting on there. So in other words, if they're flat, the skateboarders are going to be, then you have a safety issue. So that was we were demonstrating, that picture was to demonstrate the fact that we're going to do a similar type of deal from a safety standpoint on this memorial.
I'm going to pass that down.
No, we don't.
I don't think we need to see it if we're going to.
I don't think we need to see it now.
Yeah.
If you want to send it, email it to us, or.
So staff will coordinate the pictures and the location that was requested, and we'll provide that for the next meeting.
May I speak, Brian?
Yes, please.
I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. And maybe some of my fellow commissioners will follow suit so that you get an idea of where at least one commissioner is coming from. I like the idea of using the fountain for your sculpture. To me, that's a done deal. I strongly question the arbors, and I strongly question the plaques and the bricks being in that location. I think they could go into a more secondary and quieter location. Does anybody want to follow suit and add what their initial thoughts are? That's my initial thoughts for now, temporary.
Wow.
I'd be happy to. I agree with David in the fact of the location for the sculpture. I do like the arbor. I don't necessarily think that the materials. I think the materials should more reflect. Instead of wood, reflect the highlights of the other buildings, and especially the library. But I like the arbor and the fact that I think it soothes the coldness of the plaza. The plaques, I believe, I'm in agreement with you. I think the 4 plaques are a lot. I think having them on all the buildings is a lot. I think having them on the museum is not acceptable to me. Having them on the police building, I think is acceptable. First responders, police are first responders. I think that makes more sense. Having it on the administrative building, it gets all over. I think it needs to be more brought down into more of a concentrated area. I kind of like the Eternal Flame. I think it's too tall for me, but you know, adjusted down a little bit. Whether it's the 5-guy sculpture or the 1-guy sculpture, or excuse me, 5-person sculpture, or the 1-person and the eagle sculpture, I think I would be interested in the sizes of that a little bit. 9 feet seems big to me. It seems gargantuan to me. It seems more personal to me if it's more like a real-life person or real-life size of a person to me. That's my view. But the walkway going in, I think the walkway is a nice idea. I think if that could be accomplished, maybe on a little less of a grand scale. But the walkway coming into the Civic Center is, I think, is kind of important because people just walk across the lawn anyway, right? So the circular design is nice, but it's not practical in getting people into that space. So those are my feelings.
May I add to that? I'm in a little disagreement with the walkway. I think that that whole area during the summer is used by families and picnicking and also music in the park, and it gets very warm out there, and I just see that it could cause some problems as far as heat, and I love, and a lot of people comment on how beautiful the greenery is, and that is a park. So that I have a little different opinion on. Also, my own opinion as far as the sculpture, I don't like mixing different materials like the aluminum and the modern versus the nostalgia and also bring it down in a smaller, more intimate, reflective type of area as opposed to, and it was mentioned, and I took note of it 4 times, it was mentioned the word attraction. And I don't know about you, but I think this should be a place of reflection and so somewhat quiet time, not an attraction, so to speak.
Yes, George. Yeah, I noted the attraction word myself. I was going, wait a minute. In any case, I did write down some notes here, and I'll take the middle ground on the walkway. I kind of like the idea of the walkway. I think it's too big. I like the trellises, but I think they need to be in steel or aluminum, or it needs to reflect the mid-century modernness of not only this structure, but the library that was reflected because of this structure and the neighborhood center adjacent. The stone that's on the what do you call them? Those planters. The stone is not correct. I'd just rather see cast concrete or cast concrete with some detail of bricks, or because the whole place, just about the whole place, is brick and cast steel. Yeah, and cast concrete, I mean. Wall panels, that's way too much. I don't think I think just having the sculpture up there would be plenty. And the sculpture, in my mind, is way too heroic. War is heroic, it's tragic, it's awful. It's a bunch of different things. It is not just heroism, or serving is not just heroism. And I'll agree with some of the others that talked about something a little more contemplative. In fact, you guys mentioned that several different times, yet the statue, I don't think, speaks to that. And I don't see anything, it was also mentioned educational and meditative, but I don't see anything educational or meditative in the sculpture itself. I think I have, a problem with the sculpture. So maybe you can work on me a little bit, or we'll see how it goes. But
it sounds like that at least everybody who spoke feels, or we agree, that the sculpture is the centerpiece. The sculpture is the point. That's the art. And the rest of it seems to be centering around architecture, which is intimidating to this, what's been brought up as being wonderful architecture as it is. I think your point, George, of simplifying it, making it a little, maybe matching some of the materials that are here, like this cast concrete, makes a bit more sense. It really does. I agree with you on that. You in the audience are aware that the only time we get a chance to discuss this, to kind of hash it out and argue it, is in front of the public. So that's why this is maybe seems a bit disjointed or whatever.
Actually, I think the notion of an arbor around that area warms it, creates a center, is lovely, enhances the area. But again, I think the style of this tends to be more mission-esque than fitting in the with the architecture that we have. What I like most about this is the arbor. The sculpture itself, I have to say artistically, I don't find appealing at all. I would prefer, I believe, something more symbolic, something that would emit emotions. I think of whether it's the Vietnam Wall in Washington or other places. I find them not only stunning artistically, but incredibly moving. And I think that sculpting life-size individuals is particularly difficult. And I worry about the quality, not seeing a maquette of what that would look like. I am somewhat concerned about the location, but I am moved toward that location because of the arbor, because it so enhances the city. But I also think because it reflects the library and the police department and all things civic, that it should reflect the community, and perhaps the memorial elsewhere. But regardless, I find this particular piece unattractive artistically.
Colleen, wait, let me interrupt for a second. Could you readdress the arbor? I don't think I understand you. You say at first that it's too mission-esque, or I don't like it, and then you say you like the arbor best of all.
The notion of the arbor. The notion of the arbor.
Okay, but not as shown.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think part of what we're talking about is the notion of having something that's been virtually a wasteland for decades
Absolutely.
turn into something that people want to go and be a part of and enjoy. Right? That's what I'm hearing, is that there's some way of making it more appealing. Nobody wants to go up there now. It's kind of like a stopover if you're waiting for somebody on either side of the platform. So is that sort of what you're saying, Colleen?
It's exactly what I'm saying, but I'm still have reservations about the location of the statue. While, I mean, the statue is what would bring the arbor to our community. But I think there's other ways to get a more fitting, suitable aesthetic arbor, perhaps outside of the memorial.
Well, wait. Well, Colleen, now you mean outside of the memorial, as the memorial would be placed in the fountain area?
Correct.
Say, for example, if a statue that is agreed upon were moved from the round fountain to the upper platform, for example, and then an arbor put around that, you're talking about that as an idea?
Exactly.
Okay, very good point.
I am going to recommend that in the interest of not going all night to get everything done today, since we have other sessions scheduled, that maybe we're at a reasonable stopping point to adjourn?
You're actually ahead of schedule. You got to the evaluation discussion and you started that in
Yeah.
a constructive, productive way.
And the ideas are going to start percolating, and maybe we can just start fresh
could-
with that at 4 o'clock next week.
If I could just
Yes,
mention
Pauline, second time.
one thing before, and that is, I noted some flexibility in Kent's comments regarding whether or not it be the 5 or the 1. And so I'm hopeful that maybe this week there can be some discussion as to how much flexibility you're feeling, because I think there seems to be, at least at this point, a consensus regarding too many walls involved in the memorial. The plaques on the walls. And perhaps just the notion of the art. And so I think, I'm sure that's not what you wanted to hear, but I think that that might be helpful in coming back to us next time. So I thank you for that willingness to discuss that with us.
First, yeah. Dawn, you have something else?
Well, I'm the only one that didn't say what I was thinking. And I'm thinking so much, so I'll just give a capsule because I'm still digesting it all. I too like the notion of the arbor the best. I do think it would need some straight lines, like mid-century more working, but I like that warming it up. I believe a couple of veterans said that the statue is very warm and inviting. I'm not sure everybody feels that way. And again, I think we should have a memorial, but I'm not sure everybody feels that way about that statue or memorial. I'm open to something, I just don't know what. The arbor for sure. Pardon me? Modified, yes. And I'll save the rest of my thoughts until the next meeting. I need to digest all this information.
Well, and I guess I just want to remind, I'm on, the purpose of the Arts and Culture Commission, and maybe this is, overstating, is, I mean, I don't know that we're going to get an agreement here about what's going to happen and blueprint a new plan. We're gonna make recommendations to the town council, and that's going to be our job, right? So we're going to have, at the end of the day, that's our purpose. Tom, you want to finish up, and then I'll anybody here that wants to also bring comment before we break, I would welcome to do that.
That's what I was going to suggest. I mean, I know that there's people out there after listening to us who are probably chomping at the bit to kill me or somebody, but I would love to hear any rebuttal from anyone out there, if we have time.
Or they could reserve the right to provide that at the next meeting if you choose. That's the other.
Listen, I think the point is that we want to make it a dialogue, and so if it's relevant tonight, bring it on. I think we got time. If you think it would wait till next week, we're going to do this again next week for 2 hours. 2 weeks, excuse me. My apologies.
So,
Next
Mr.
week's
Chair.
Thanksgiving.
Mr. Chair, so just to kind of follow up on Town Manager Larson's comments, we are a little bit after 6. The meeting was scheduled from 4 to 6. I know there's at least one commissioner that has to leave due to another commitment, and I'm sure that all of the comments that the commission has provided has been really interesting to the veterans. I think staff would respectfully request that the commission can end the meeting and then allow the veterans to digest all the information and come back for the December first meeting in December with some comments and feedback. I'm sure that they want to have the opportunity to review the meeting again and review your comments and be able to provide rebuttal at that time.
Motion to adjourn?
Anybody second that motion? Great. We're adjourned. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you all, yeah.